Awesome. Raf, thank you, my friend, for coming back in.
All good.
Even though you are
here.
even though you are part of the furniture downstairs.
Yeah.
Good to come up.
Yeah.
Join the show once in a while.
Yeah.
It is, man. Well, I guess first things first, man. So obviously, you are a client manager at our team. So you're, let's just say on the what's the expression? On the
Pointy end of the stick.
Pointy end of the stick. I was going to say the spearhead. Certainly spearheading, our client strategies, right? And obviously helping clients on a day-to-day basis. I think one of the really important parts about what you do is the fact that you're obviously, very much client-facing, working with clients. You hear and see and feel a lot of the stuff that they're going through in terms of the barriers and hurdles they're going to jump in order to be prepared to start investing in property.
Yep.
Right. So I think that's going to be really valuable for our listeners. But I guess without further ado, I've got obviously some questions we can go through today. But really, I think the first place to start with is really helping out the people who aren't sure, apprehensive, got concerns or questions when it comes to what we're doing in terms of property.
Yep.
And fundamentally, really, I guess kind of the barriers that they're going to need to jump in order to get into the market. All right. This is for the people who haven't quite got into the market. So the first question is really about, like, what do you see as the main barriers or hurdles for most people nowadays when it comes to actually being willing to jump in the market and take on that risk?
I think, like anyone that is really in a position to do something, it's generally what it's taken them to get there to be ready. And then they feel like, the decision, that they're going to make and now use this money and actually invest and start that. They've, like, I guess, view how long it's taken them to get to that position. And they, have that fear of going, well, how quickly that might go away. And it's not to say and it's just about having a number on a screen in a bank, right? Sitting there, and the amount of times, we've got a lot of first time buyers, which have done so well with getting their deposits. They get comfortable to see that amount of money sitting there staring at the face. And then, they don't realize in the background that, yeah, great, you got a good income and, you've saved that else, maybe within a year, let's say, or you've done really, really well in 6 months, or maybe it took you a little bit longer, 2 years. And that's that emotional tie to the money. But then they don't realize that, are they being that effective with the money?
Yeah. And
seeing that in simple one-liners like, did you know that that's sitting in a bank account, you're getting taxed again on money you've already been taxed on, and you're not being effective with your money.
Yeah.
Right. And then and in the end, that's sort of getting that mindset behind sort of just pointing out a few parts that, in the end, not necessarily, changes this person's actions, but it's that disruption in their comfort zone.
Yeah.
But I'm still finding a lot of those people are still the ones that don't do anything.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So they just want to sit on a hard bed with all their cash sitting there and think that, hey, that's I've made it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where in the end it's as we know, you're just a slave.
Yeah.
To being a worker.
Yeah.
And $100,000 sitting there ain't gonna change anything. That goes very quickly, especially as things keep getting more expensive. So it's quite prevalent. For me, looking at my 30s, 39 now, and sort of the part of really not being good and effective with my money up to date, up to the 30, and then the difference of actually being more proactive and actually, taking the risk, understanding, that the actions is where the difference is, and to the point of a lot of people, couples, you've got, the different nature of a female and a male. And unfortunately, the reality of it is there has to be that balance. But if I listened to my wife a second time, we wouldn't have had this investment. And now she's seen from us securing it last time in April, and the bank's valuing it at $70,000 more with no holding costs, by December last year. It's sort of in their eyes, it's just oh, sort of the pennies dropped a little bit.
Now makes sense, yeah.
And it's that's what we do it for. And the reality of it is, having 2 young kids and going, well, how do you make a difference, or how do you do something that, when they're getting of age, how are we going to help them?
Yeah.
It's again, like related to that whole part of, what we have like right now doing every day of the week. It's sort of like, until the action is taken and until you've actually lived through it, then, this is where really, how are you ever going to know? But the point is like, if you keep doing the same thing day in, day out, how are you going to expect different results?
Yeah.
So it's like, and you got to make a choice. You either are a genuine investor and you're genuinely wanting to have more options as you get older, or just accept not to be and don't worry about property. Don't buy anything. Like, don't buy any investments and enjoy your money, because that's fine as well.
Yeah.
But, make a choice and actually bloody put action.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, you brought up some good points, man. I mean, I think the first thing is, really comfort zones. Comfort zones, unfortunately, kills more dreams than most things. And I mean, I know you're the best person to talk to about this. I mean, the amount of times that we've seen clients who are sitting and they work their ass off over 3 or 4 years to save like 200 grand.
Yeah.
And then they become so immobilized to now want to do anything with it because of how much they've had to sacrifice to make it. And it's like, they have this sort of attitude that, I'm doing fine. And unfortunately, 200 grand ain't going to get a lot in retirement.
That's right.
I mean, look, let's just say that the average person needs, say, 60 grand a year. You got yourself, 3 and a bit years worth of retirement with 200 grand.
That's today, but not by the time you retire.
Right. And then obviously with inflation, with obviously cost of living, the fact that, assets are really outpacing wage growth in almost every asset class. Yeah, and you're right, man. Like, action fundamentally is the only thing that actually moves the needle. I mean, the amount of people, and if you've seen them, right, that just talk for years about how they want to do stuff. And it's like, unfortunately, talking for years, the market's still moving, and instead of getting in 4 or 5 years ago at 400 grand, you're now getting 800 grand. It's like, you've lost, there's half your money's gone.
And it puts them off even further.
Well, that's the other thing too, right? And I think, speaking to that, the amount, like, how many people have you heard over the last couple of years said that they're going to wait for the market to crash before they get in?
Well, they all talk about it until they see, the difference if they actually made a choice.
Right.
And if it lands, right, they're the ones that, in the end do see, a difference on their end. And guess what? It's higher debt, less cash flow is initial. But then when they see the result, and it's generally once the property's done and you're like, have a look at the prices today. Yeah. Have a look at this today. Like, I've had a client walk in today, right? And like, cash flow wasn't great. Single mother, in the end, like, had the money there and is like myself, great to pay a bill, not so good at saving.
Yeah.
Loves her holidays, make sure that, she gets her holidays out, at the moment, taking a couple of weeks off because she can't be bothered.
Yeah.
Right. Good. It hasn't stopped her living her life by getting investment. And like, she's looking at the next one. It's like, I get what I need to do. I've now got a higher income, which generally most of our, customers will progress.
Yeah.
Right. And then it just, in the end, it's like, cool. So what do I do with this extra money? And then it's, in the end, like, cool, go on an extra holiday, right? Or, at an age where, she's in her early 50s, like, it's a bit more real for her that she understands, and it's hit home about that, assets, it's proven to her, right?
Yep.
Like, she bought land for 220 grand today. To buy it is 320.
Right.
Right. So,
okay.
And that's just in the land side of it.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the whole part about, I guess, from seeing that, like, and her being, conservative and not wanting to put her money towards it, but, having a property, and, utilizing the equity of really how, what she's put a lot of years into paying that house off.
Right.
Still living there. And that's the same as savings.
Right.
Paying a debt is the exact same as savings. Right. And that's, but I guess seeing the difference between, at the time when she was engaging, she was on the fence to do it or not, for multiple reasons. And now sort of like her really like now her property's on the close to being rented out, and like her just doing a quick reviews and seeing some quick data that she's looked at herself. She's like, it's like, she's like, dude, how quickly can I get another one?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I should have looked at this months ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, you know, been trying to touch base with her 4 months, you know, and like just busy lady, had other things going on. And like in the end, and that's again a part of where we fit in so well, because it's like sort of, so how did you go? She was like, amazing, great. Like, so I can go, cool. So she just goes like, you know, I've got no time.
Yep.
Because my time is spent for traveling. I've got kids and, you know, everyday life, and, you know, I'm away at 2 weeks out of 3. So it just like, I guess that's the whole part. But she also, you know, seen the difference between not doing something and thinking about, was one of those people that was, you know, saw COVID, saw it happen, 45K grants in front of your face. And just was like, by the time she's like, okay, I always was going to get another property. Why didn't I?
Yeah.
And it's, yeah. And really it's like that whole part of people talking about, when to get in the market, what's the right timing.
Yeah.
It's all about, when did you get in the market and how long have you been in the market, right?
Yeah.
That compounding interest ladder, and just hold on to it. If you're never selling, who cares what the property market does?
Yeah.
It will always correct itself.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just, that whole mindset that you work on, and there is no right or wrong answer, because we're not guaranteed tomorrow, right? And in the end, like what you do with your money is up to you. But you know, there's only so many, you know, dining out, and you know, so many things you can spend your money on. Where there's generally, if you know our clientele base, there's generally some excess money there that could be put to use.
Yep.
You know, and that's why it's customized for every client. Like,
yeah,
cash flow wasn't there, but the equity, you release it, and it safeguarded her because she put all that effort in years of getting that mortgage down, and didn't affect her. She went on 2 holidays, didn't work for a month during building a home, right? Yes, she's on a decent income and she got a pay increase, but she's like, of course I can afford another one. It's a no-brainer. And even though she's not really like mentally sort of knows her numbers and budgets, because she's just been spending quite a bit, and she puts her hand up and goes, oh, you know, I had some money there, I went and done a big shopping and da-da-da. But like, it's like also like, you know, just going, all well and good, I could have just, you know, left and got easy. Let's just base off your $300 a week invest first for me. And I'm just like, well, I'd rather see what you actually are. And obviously if you're, you know, she's like, oh, I can refine that, because if I've got something to put it towards, but let's see, you know, is it going to be comfortable? Are you ready? You know, like, and like, yes, there's a few indications that you are, but let's see it actually in writing and not hypotheticals.
Yeah.
Right. And then just see, and then that ideally will tie into, you know, opening up. Are we looking at other states? Are we like, is the cash flow going to be there? Do we need to do other things to assist you with that cash flow of different, you know, potential structures, or talk to the tax agent about, you know, essentially the tax variation, you know, is that going to help? Is that the best option? We like to spend money when we see the money, you know, so it's like, and setting up the structures, and it's just really tying it in full cycle for her. I think she was like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. And it's like, yep, there's definitely a few tweaks that, even though so much we talked about, you know, some of the stuff weren't done through bank policy and bank products, that she couldn't have multiple offsets to be more effective, or, you know, telling that she's now transferring money from her offset to pay the other mortgage, where it's like, well, you can just get, you know, it direct debited from your offset. And just simple things that just to refine that. Like, there's so much that goes on, and it's bit by bit sort of like these things fall into place. And, you know, to see, I guess, back to back with sitting in front of someone that is now just signed off on a strategy, and these, you know, the next client coming in that I met late 2023, and, you know, she's basically breezed through it and done, you know, what we set out to do. It's, I guess, that action, you know, where likewise, you know, flip side, you see people that, have, you know, things change. And there was that one client that, just basically saw his brother do it, pushed him into it, had 85 grand. There's a first home buyer. Oh, I'm going to buy my first home. And then it was like talking about, or maybe, you know, if the area that I'm going there is purely emotional, it's not really going to be the best growth. So maybe looking at getting an investment property in the good area to grow, and then jump into that next one and have multiple properties. And, you know, in the end, doing all the driving out, seeing all the numbers makes all sense. But, you know, then in the end still hasn't bought a property, and this is now 8-9 months later. And I feel he's looking at the market and like knowing, I guess, his mindset. I think even when I saw him 8 months ago, I was thinking he missed out on the market. Right. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a hard one because obviously, FOMO is a real thing, and I feel like it's getting worse as social media and technology gets better. In your face constantly.
Yeah.
And obviously people always put the good shit on. You know what I mean? So if they're making lots and lots of money, that's what they want to share with the world. No one really talks about the downsides.
Yeah.
But it's quite funny. Like I love it when you got clients like the lady you're talking about. A couple of years ago, she was on track doing one thing. A couple of years later, not only is the penny dropped and she's in a much better position and actually going full steam ahead. I love it when in that tipping point where, and this is probably, I'd say, between sort of 3 to sort of 7 years down the track, where not only do they fully grasp the entire strategy, but they grasp the finance structures, the entities, all the little 1%ers that kind of goes into it. Then they start teaching their friends that stuff, and they're talking to their friends about, redraws versus offset accounts. And
she's talking to her Uber driver on the way.
Right.
And like she's saying, talk to these guys.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's just like, that's like how,
yeah,
from not sure to like all in,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But look, sometimes it also takes proof in the pudding. It takes taking that first step, actually seeing it work in reality. And you know how it goes, man. I mean, most of our clients, particularly at the very beginning, like they don't trust us until the first property gets tenants.
Yeah.
Until the first property gets tenants, a lot of it is just our word and just us saying that we're going to do stuff. And then when they build it, they buy it, whatever the case is, get settled, and then, we go and find tenants for it. The second they start receiving that rental income is the second they realize, holy shit, this is actually real. Like, this is legitimate. This is not just smoke and mirrors. And then they see the valuations, they see how much they're getting in rent, they're seeing, how much they're receiving back in tax now. And all of a sudden it's like, holy crap, where the hell has this been?
Yeah.
But, the part of the problem that we've got is most people are still so skeptical, or they're fearful of the market because of the information, disinformation, all the bullshit that's out there. Now, I mean, with that, because I guess you would hear a lot of what clients are saying nowadays. Like, what is the bullshit that you see out there that clients are talking to you guys about?
Look, I think, a lot of people talk about that it's, reached a peak.
Right.
There's that perspective of, really, there's noise in the market about 4 or 5 months ago about the mining. Right. Lithium has gone away and how many people lost their jobs and, found jobs and stuff. And there was that volatility there. And
iron ore prices are going to crash and blah, blah, blah. Yep.
And they believe the market's controlled by that.
Yep.
When they don't really realize that even like in the WA market, like you can say our economy is run, but same by the mines. And like it's all about how the mines are going. Like, and there's a point where if you look at the statistics, and I could be wrong because it's been a while since I've looked at it, but it's like I think it's like 8% of the market is mining, of the economy.
Yeah.
And then we've got, construction is another 8% of our economy. And then you've got health and education.
Yeah.
Right. And it's really, in the end, it's not like people are talking about, it's like, in the way they think, it's like 80% is how the mining's going.
Yeah. Now, this is, so for the guys at home, so this is ID community. So it's basically demographics that come straight from the census, when the census gets done every 4 years. Now, what this is comparing is basically like the different industry sectors and how big it is in comparison. And so what Raf's talking about here, it actually breaks down every sector of employment in Australia against what it looks like in WA. All right, specifically. Now, this is looking at the 2021 census. This is 4 years ago. And then you got the 2016 census. Now, a part of the problem with, I guess, the information out there, and like you're sort of saying, Raf, like most people have this perspective that mining is like the be all and end all when it comes to our property market. And it's not. the mining industry, yes, it props up a lot of, gives us a lot of money in WA, right? It gives us, a shitload of things that we can go and export across the world and obviously make lots and lots of money. But where the anomaly sits is the proportion it is for Australia versus the proportion it is for, say, WA. Now, what I'm talking to is basically this.
Right.
So, like, our biggest industry in WA is healthcare and social assistance. So today, this is as of 2021, we are employing 1.75 million people in WA in the healthcare and social assistance sector, which makes up 13.6% of the WA economy, 13.6% of the WA workforce, or it's 14.5% against the Australian workforce.
Right.
So that's the kind of, benchmark Australia versus, say, WA.
Right.
Then second is construction. So there's just over 1 million people working construction in WA, 8.8% of our market in WA, whereas it's 8.9% for Australia.
Global. Yes.
So again, pretty similar. Next, you got retail trade. So again, just over 1 million people. It's 8.8% of the WA market, then 9.1% of the Australian market. So again, that's still fairly similar. Next is education and training. And again, just over 1 million people, 8.8 versus 8.8. So again, it's pretty much on par with how big it is in WA versus how big it is in Australia. Then comes mining. So mining is the fifth on the list here in WA. We've got 214,000 people. Now, keep in mind, and this is I guess, kind of the main thing to speak to here. See, people... And like we see it all the time, right? Where they're like, iron ore prices are doing this and gas is doing this. And if this, if this commodity shits the bed, then, the property market's going to crash and everyone's going to blah, 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 right? And that's kind of the common concern that we sort of hear from the tykees out there. Now, I want to make this clear. What the mines are doing and what our imports and exports are doing does not correlate to any movement in the property market. The property market is a function of supply and demand, people versus houses. It's the mines and the demand, particularly in the construction and then the deconstruction phases of building out a mine site that requires the most amount of people. And when we've obviously got a booming market and there's lots of mines and lots of money over here and there's lots of exploration going on and lots of different sites, because obviously WA is a huge place, it brings a shitload of people over here from the East Coast, particularly right now in New Zealand. Like every second client right now is from New Zealand. Yeah. New Zealand's driver's license, and they're all coming over here to get our mining jobs because there's not enough workers over here. But still, it's 214,000 people in WA versus 1.7 million people employed in healthcare and social assistance. Now, to be clear, it's still big, but in comparison to the other sectors, it's tiny.
Yeah.
And it's when the mines need the people on the ground here, that's what then increases the population, increases obviously the demand for those type of skilled workers, and again, scaffolders, sparkies, plumbers, you name it. And then obviously you got your actual mining jobs like drillers and operators and things like that actually physically in the mines during the production phase, which is the main section of the life of the mine site. But I guess the difference is that makes up 7.5% of the WA workforce, where it's only 1.8% of the Australian workforce. Yeah. And that gap is why it blows out of proportion here in WA. And you look at the rest of them, because the next is professional, scientific and technical, accommodation and food, public and safety, manufacturing, transport, wholesale trade, it kind of, the list goes on. But how big it is in WA versus Australia is all pretty comparable. 6.9 to 7.8, 6.5, 6.5, 5.9 to 6. So they're all pretty similar, except for mine.
Yeah.
And, it's one of these ones where I think there is a little bit too much emphasis on how the correlation between the mines and, property moves. Mm-hmm. And I always got to kind of bring it back to this, because this is actual numbers, this is data. Yep. And to say that, these 214,000 people that we require in the mines is the only reason why a property market ticks in WA, I think is very naive. Mm-hmm. Now, again, my argument for that and my question would be, well, then why does Adelaide's median price grow at the rate that it does? They don't really have mines like we do in WA. Mm-hmm. Why does Now, obviously, Queensland has its own resource sector in itself, but when you look at long term places like the ACT, you look at places like Hobart, you look at some of the smaller cities, like their markets still double every 10 to 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
They don't rely on mines.
Yeah.
So for everyone to kind of sit in WA or sit in Perth and think we've got nothing going on, the only thing that's holding us up is the mines, and as soon as the mines crash, then the market here is just going to implode. Like, that's never happened.
Yeah.
And we've been through multiple cycles when it comes to the mines.
That's right.
And it's just, it is, to your point, it's one of those ones that when you really grasp the leading indicators and then the lagging indicators, so, what we want to see in terms of the data online and then how that ripples out to the market, obviously the mines at WA are important, but it's certainly not as important as what people think.
Yeah.
Yet, just notice how many people use that as their means of inaction.
It's an excuse in the end. Like, people can sit there and, like, they've got all the right intentions of why they're there.
Yeah.
But behind the scenes, like, they feel like they have to do something.
Yeah.
Or they get FOMO because other people, like, that whole thing that they see around them, because that's what anyone does on the mines. Is they all professionals in property, apparently. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's all they talk about. So it's pretty prevalent.
Yeah.
In that industry. But then you have the 50, 60-year-olds that have got property, but they're still stuck there because they were like, went straight to like mining towns, right? Great. Or it's all about cash flow.
Yeah.
Good while it's good, not so good when it's not so good. And, or they go and purely budget, like conscious, right? Cheapest properties, just go out there. Then they're dealing with a lower demographic of, instability of incomes and Centrelink supported families. And like, it's important, but that, like, in the end, like, this is a business, and it's like, you got to treat us as such. And, you do, personally, I've seen the difference of getting just a cheap property compared to actually getting the best for, or spending, up to the median.
Actually, this is a good point.
Yeah.
And
then the difference, I've owned both.
Yeah.
Right. And I've rented both out, and I can tell you there's chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
Right. Between volatility.
Yeah.
What you actually get out of it.
And so there's actually a conversation I was having this morning, ironically, about this. Like, most people now, and you see this online with the different companies out there and their strategy and what they're trying to do. There's one company that I know of, and their entire strategy is finding like old dilapidated houses that are foreclosed. So these are houses that were owned by somebody. That person, stopped making the repayments. The banks had to kind of, essentially kick them out, foreclose on the house, and then fire sell it at a ridiculously cheap price. And that's their strategy. They, go online and, hoard those, like, find those properties, look at those lists, go to all the home opens and auctions and all that sort of stuff, and try and get them for cheap chips. But like I sort of said this morning, right? I would much rather overpay on a property and get it in a good area than get the best deal of the century in a shit area. Because across the next 50 years, long term,
that's right,
I'm going to make so much more money in a better area.
Yeah.
And it's not about what you're buying it for. And that's probably, again, not to say we don't want to get good deals. Of course we want to get good deals, right? Do we want to buy under market? In a perfect world, we would love to buy under market. But the reality is, if you're buying something just because it's cheap, it's like you're buying something that you don't need just because it's on discount.
Yeah. Retail therapy.
And it doesn't actually solve your problem. Whereas if you actually spend a bit more money on something that actually solves your problem, well, that's going to solve your problem.
Yeah. What on?
Called you broke. You know what I mean? But it's interesting because, obviously there's different perspectives on this stuff, but at the end of the day, like, we've got to fundamentally solve the client's problem. And the problem is we're slaves.
Yeah.
We are modern day economic slaves. We are forced to go to work, do shit that we don't really want to spend our time doing. And when I say that, I'm not saying that we don't like our jobs. What I'm saying is, if you had hundreds of millions of dollars in your bank account tomorrow, would you want to spend your weeks doing what you're doing today? Chances are probably not.
Yeah.
For those who say yes to that, you're lying to yourself.
Indeed.
Absolutely not. And sure, you might love your job. You might be super passionate about whatever you're doing. I can promise you, if you had all the money in the world, you'd be spending that time with your family, having fun with your friends, and
spending the money.
Right. But just living.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of being a modern day slave. But that fundamentally is the problem that we're trying to solve. You know, and at the end of the day, if you're going to go down a direction and just buy the cheapest thing that doesn't actually give you the returns and solve your problem, and I've been there, you've been there. First house I bought, area I grew up now. I thought I'd live there forever. It's cheap as chips. My worst performing property by far.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's other properties that were far more expensive, but in much better areas, and are running laps around that first property in Kenmare. Smaller, you know, right? You know,
yeah.
All the markers that would say, you know, further from the city.
That's right.
You know, on a smaller block.
Yeah.
You know, but the location was actually much less closer to the beach, closer to the freeway, closer to the train station. Like it's you know, there's all those other things that I prioritized. And you can see year on year the returns. I mean, that house in Kenwick that I've bought, my first home, that is still the most heavily negatively cash flow property that I own, and I've owned it for the longest time.
Yeah, crazy, hey?
And that shouldn't work. That's not how it should actually go.
True.
And that's the reality of my current portfolio. But you know, again, the lens that I was using to buy was just completely incorrect. You know, granted, didn't know what I knew now. Hindsight's a beautiful thing.
Of course.
But you know, we got to make sure that, you know, when clients, particularly those who are struggling with FOMO, and they see their friends and brothers and mates at site, you know, accumulating portfolios, making, in the last couple of years, making hundreds of thousands of dollars doing literally nothing, just taking the risk of owning a property.
Yeah.
You know, they just want to rush in and just get something for the sake of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and at the same time as well, the ego, right? The amount of people that I see talking about a number of properties. Oh, I want to own 10 properties, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I own X. Like, that is the most irrelevant fucking thing that you can say.
Yeah.
And the number of properties is irrelevant. It's the value and how well that value is performing over time. You know?
That's a funny one, because it's a lot of the times, I go, what are your goals, you know? And everyone's like, it's like, how many properties do you own? And it's like, okay, all well and good. That doesn't get me excited.
No.
But, you know, what's your life goals, right? And that's the stuff you work towards. Numbers on a screen won't make you happy. You know what it's mean? But it's like, cool, I can set up. And a lot of the times what I'm loving to hear is like, even though these younger males there don't have a missus or whatever, but they want to be prepared for the family. You know, we both come from poor families, and it's like that, you know, we inherently are providers. But like that generation is now smart about going, well, I need to be ready before I get to that. And knowing that it's, you know, you sort of like, I think it's like that, you know, you're pushing away from the life that we had growing up, in the sense it wasn't bad. It was a lot of love, and, you know, like I was wearing girls' hand-me-downs because I had 3 older sisters, and I didn't know any different. You know what I mean? But there was a lot of love. There was always food on the plate, you know. Doesn't matter I was wearing secondhand clothes and shit like that. I didn't notice. But it's going now and understanding, like, to go, well, the struggles that we went through and to get up to where we are, it's like that opportunity. I don't want it to be wasted.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's you know, making those choices, and until, I guess, the whole part of like by 27 actually making some good money, and then by 30 knowing what to do with it, or, you know, or finally starting to get ahead, and then, you know, sort of almost just by chance, like lucky, when I bought that next property, I had someone walk past that owned multiple and was like, why are you buying there? And I, you know, jumped into Jindalee instead of Butler. Not to say they would have done bad with Butler, but the difference when 8 years ago that market was flat, Butler was really hurting compared to Jindalee. And understanding about like the simple part of spending like for like on paper 70, 80 grand more, and seeing the performance of that, you know, it's like living through it. You know, so owning property for 19 years, it's like I've seen the rates. My first interest rate was 7.8% normal. You know what I mean? That was just the rate at the time. My parents were even more. It's like all of these things that people just use as excuses, where like I wasn't necessarily the biggest when I done these decisions. Like I was led to it. Like my dad sort of, I wanted to buy 10 grand push bike, like, you know, for the last one. And I was led to it, and it was like, oh, well, if that's what I'm doing, And then I made, the choice of going, no, I want to do it myself, and that stubbornness and the lens, as you said, that you're viewing it in. But it's understanding, like, still in the end, even though it wasn't the best choice, the action is still there.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the only thing I can say. Like, I've always wanted to, got the traveling bug at 19. I traveled every damn year since. Yes, I used my equity. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I had more choices than anyone.
Yeah.
I could do as much time as I bought cars through my equity.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I could have been smarter with the money, but I lived life.
Yeah.
And people have that misconception as soon as I get a property or get debt that it's going to stop me from living.
Not at all.
Well, not if you do it right.
Well, it's the opposite if you're right.
Yeah.
And that's where it
But
gets
also you refine around what you're already doing.
Yep.
So if you're already doing this, then do a strategy based on that.
Yep.
And that's, I guess, the other part behind it. It's like, flip side, you've got, I've got mates over the years that are, I've known for 15 odd years, and it's like same age, did multiple jobs the same, right? The difference between, he bought apartment too, he sold though, right? Like super early, it was just all too hard, and then just never got back in the market,
right?
And it's like, we're 40 next year.
Yeah.
Or he's 40 at the end of this. And it's like, in the end, like, luckily his missus has got a property, and like, it's not like he hasn't, but it's like, you can see that, as you said, that stark decision time and sort of the difference between where I'm at and he's at. And don't get me wrong, he's had no mortgages for that long. He's had no of these bills, none of this extra stuff. But in the end, it was all within my means. The banks assess you on way higher than what you're assessing yourself on, or what you're paying that interest. And it was just like, again, it was just putting that money to use instead of it just sitting there piling up, looking at me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, it's just been, it's interesting, I guess. And like, that being said, you've got people that are genuinely happy to just rent and enjoy their money, and got people coming in and, going that they done well with property, looking at the second one, but they decide they would rather travel. Good. Get a system, go do it. Yeah. You don't have to, because it is that we're not going to paint a pretty picture. Mm-hmm. And the reality of it is you got to put stuff towards it. But, in the end, is it worth doing or not? It's quite obvious.
Well, this is one of my battles, right? And this, I swear this a lot as a team, but, the in one hand, we want to prioritize the future and freedom, right? And again, breaking out of the economic slavery. The point is, you can't really do that in one day. It's going to have to be consistent choices that you've made and actions you take over an extended period of time. And we all want that future. Like, we all want to be free. We all want to have more money, more time, more options, more flexibility, you name it. But as someone who does, let's say, practice Buddhism, now is the only moment. And there is a part of me that thinks, it's like, should I just fuck all this, sell it all, liquidate, and just live purely in the moment, because this is a time that only ever exists. The only problem with that is, obviously, there is a tomorrow if all goes to plan. And I do see value in people living in the moment. Mm-hmm. In fact, I think that's probably one of the biggest problems in the world, is the fact people don't live in the moment. They are too concerned about, particularly the history or the trauma or the past. That's
other people's past, not theirs.
Well, that too, but even just like how immobilizing trauma is for some people. Living, constantly having the same traumatic experiences just go through your head every single day, and you're just trapped by it. And you can't live in the moment because you're too busy living yesterday. Yeah. And then you got all those other people who just are completely indifferent about the future. Like, couldn't give a shit.
Yeah.
Like my I've got family members, right, where it's like the amount of times that they've tried taking the piss out of me for working in this industry. And the reason why I say, because they're always just have this attitude of, oh, fucking, you don't need to do that.
Sales reps.
Well, no, it's not even that. It's more like the fact that I'm so hyper focused on building a future.
Yeah.
And it's like, for the first like 6-7 years of my career in this industry, like, I was doing stupid hours a week, sacrificing, skipping, like, no drinking, no partying, none of that kind of stuff. Obviously very limited if it ever happened, but again, it was just 70-hour weeks, head down, bum up. And to be fair, I probably was a little bit too focused on building a future than living in the moment at the time. But standing here today, looking backwards, I don't regret a single minute of it. And it worked.
Yep, spot on.
You know, but there are going to be a big chunk of people that no matter what, they don't want to make that sacrifice. They just want to live today. They just want to blow their cash, have fun, be on that hamster wheel, and, you know, just hope that they can rob enough money together to actually finish and get to the finish line, let alone thrive.
Well, it's also like, you look at like one of the slides we have in our PowerPoint, and it's like the whole part of like before I started here, I never knew what pension was waiting for people, right? As a single and as it's like, you know, our parents came in from like there was war and all stuff going on in survival mode, right? Well, they went through, but that also got fed this whole thing. Just buy your own home, pay it off, and she'll be right. You know what I mean? And it's sort of like you look at that and then fast forward and go and the whole part of, like we won't even have a pension at our age now. And like the whole thing is now all about superannuation. You know, being self-employed myself for 10 odd years and not really putting anything towards super, my super's super low.
Yeah.
but it's like also understanding that like that doesn't, you know, it doesn't concern me, because I know that it's all about understanding that it is in the next 10 years I can make all that difference, and I already have been.
Yeah.
You know, with I guess, you know, talking to how many people are just sitting there and relying on what they think society has set out for them, and that she'll be right and it's all there. It's like, in the reality of it is, what information are they taking to make that decision, or make that I guess, what are they looking at? What are they reading? Or what data are they having for them to go, oh, then this, all I need to do is this, you know? In the end, it's like, what are you basing that off? Or you're purely just basing it off because like, you know it's not easy, and you don't want to get out of your comfort zone, and you don't want to do, you know, what it takes to get out of that.
Yeah.
You know, but I think it's sometimes it's the reality check of actually going, guys, this is where things are at, and this is what will happen.
Yeah.
Like, and the biggest thing is you just look around people around you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And unfortunately, most people are, you know, just doing for now.
Yeah.
You know, living for the now, and that's not a bad thing. But, you know, the amount of times it's you see clients just having that, like, that there becomes a sacrifice, that there's not instant gratification, right? And it's not just like here and I have to go through all of this to get to that. Whatever in this world, like, is, you know, easy when it's worth doing.
Yeah.
You know, anything worth doing is never easy. But again, that's a choice. Like, do you do it or not?
Well, at the end of the day, you know, I mean, I've got family members now. I mean, ironically, I did a 15-hour day yesterday. Got home last night. I did some interviews and got home really late. And it's hard. I've got family members who, you know, one of which doesn't work at all. They are constantly struggling with money.
Yeah.
Constantly struggling. Always complaining about not having enough and can't do this and can't do that. And they're always in that kind of famine mentality.
Mm.
And that's also hard. Both are hard.
True that.
Choose. Yeah. you know what I mean? And again, if we were to choose the pathway of living in the now, blowing all your money, having fun, enjoying yourself, you know, but you haven't got the ability to send your kids to a good school, or you haven't got the ability to go on holiday and go to nice restaurants and actually enjoy your life, like, that is very difficult.
Yeah.
But it's also difficult running multiple businesses. It's very difficult investing. It's very difficult putting money away, saving $100,000, and then be willing to actually use it when the time comes to better your situation again.
Yeah.
That's also very tough.
And then nothing to bounce back onto. Or,
right.
Well, there's always stuff there, but it's, it's like saying bye to it.
Yeah.
And starting again.
Yeah. You know, and look, I would much rather put in the work and be ahead than not. You know, and look, everyone in this team also has the same perspective.
Have to. You don't last long here if you it's not to say that like it's a negative thing. It's just like it's people get drawn here. They see the reality.
Yeah.
And like in the end, if you're sort of like, if you're not on board with it, it's sort of like you don't really, I don't think you would ever really like even probably start to a point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But then just to see like what effort goes through to get to, to do these items and the things that constantly change to get people into the success that, we continually achieve. It's bloody stressful.
Yeah.
And a lot of people can't deal with it.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck, sometimes I feel like I can't, you know what I mean? But that's why you have these breaks and you have like, okay, cool, that's what you do it for. And you just go happy that, we're in a lucky country and we've got choices, and like in the end, like there's more options than not, I guess.
Yeah.
Because of the shit you go through.
Yeah. Now, I mean, on this topic, right? Because, the journey that it takes for you to actually get what you want isn't just about like your job.
Mm-hmm.
What are the things that you do? Because I mean, I've and the listeners of this show know this. Like I reckon I probably want to quit this at least once a week, just with the pressure and stress and responsibility and all the shit that comes with it. And having said that, doing what you're doing is also tough, very stressful. It's a lot of work, and in fairness, as a client manager, your job is probably one of the hardest jobs out there in terms of the things you've got to do, the conversations you've got to be willing to have with people, but the amount of work that it takes to actually succeed in this role.
Yeah.
So having said that, because a lot of our clients are FIFO, right? So they're on the mines, they're working underground, offshore, they're doing their thing. And, for them as well, I know for a fact, most of them want to quit what they're doing.
100%.
But they're also doing it to put themselves ahead, better situations, But the problem is sometimes those thoughts, they can win, What are the things that you're doing to make sure that you're staying on top of your game, but you've also got that kind of balance between, mental health, physical health, like making sure that you're actually in balance? Like what's some stuff that you're doing?
So it's, look, I guess it's of most recent, it fluctuates and it changes. But really simply put, like, I guess the best ways that you can sort of get structures in place that are trying to form habits. And it's always forming that habit, putting in that time and not giving up between those points. And like, you miss a day, let's say, like, getting into the gym now and having someone accountable and going, well, I need to spend that money that I really could go to the gym myself, but then I know that I wouldn't be, I don't know, it's easier to just sort of like lie to yourself, right? And sort of just get past it and go, oh, is what it is. And that becomes the habit of why not to go.
Yeah.
Where like, there's been days where it just hasn't worked out that I haven't been able to go, and knowing sort of in the background going, okay, well, if I miss that, then that's going to have a knock-on effect for my following week. I'm supposed to progress in that exercise or whatever. And sort of just before my next week starts and I have another 4 sessions, I made sure that I did that on a Sunday out of my time where I don't have time, where I actually just was like, wasn't really, I had the kids and I was like, drop the kids to the parents, drove 25 minutes to drop them off to go back all the way to the gym, do my gym session for 2 hours to then go back and pick them up, and like those sort of choices, and then just feeling like so fucking good after.
Yeah.
And going, that's what I do it for, and that's how I can do these long hours, and then the right foods, you know what I mean? Where it's just like, just, I guess, surprising, I guess, where because of doing these things, and it was like before, less, now there's like, it was all about like, I'll drink more. Right. I'll enjoy that. And it was because I didn't really have anything else to do. Yeah. So there was no real reason. Like, and even though like it's energy for your kids, and it's just interesting. It's like the habits that when you start forming good habits, and how the bad habits drop off. And it's just because of really, if you have too much time on your hands, I'm the type of person that will do things that are detrimental. Right. Eat the wrong foods, stay up super late for watching the same bloody movies, like, or just stupid, or whatever. And it's just like, how is that serving me?
Yep.
But in the end, I did that for however long, and it was, I thought it was all good. Right. But then in the end, I guess, we've gone through that sort of whole part about like clearly identifying there was no balance. There was nothing about me. I was living for my family and everyone else but myself.
Yeah.
Right. And then and I'm the one, like, and not saying my wife's put a lot of effort in, and, I've got the support of friends and family that some people don't, so every Monday my kids get looked after by my parents, and but all of this stuff here is like, fast forward, I guess 3 years in this role. And, as you get busier, it's like, I could have, if I picked up on these habits quicker, would have been a very different situation.
Yeah.
I feel, well, it's obvious, right? But it's like, then I've now, like last month, done probably the most hours I've ever done in a month, probably full stop.
Right.
You know what I mean? But having the energy, like going to bed 11, like finishing work at 11, 12 at night, most nights, but still was quite religious about having the weekends off. And that was just like, and still being able to survive. And that was the interesting part, to go to look at the energy levels that I've got. And that was because of the food, that was because of the exercise. And that's the only reason why I think I could get through that.
Yeah.
But then it's that push to now go, look, I want my next one. And I'm like, okay, cool. So how's that going to work? And it's, my wife, all her money going towards her, goals and dreams and expanding on her business. And it's sort of like, there's more money going out sort of than coming in the sense of with building a home, but it's like, it doesn't put me off it.
Yeah.
It just makes me push harder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I guess that is like, I know myself when I'm busy, that's the best. That's when I'm always the best. But again, there's going to be a time where it's just, you got to, and like now this month has sort of been, it's busy when it's busy and not so busy when it's not. So then you sort of recoup and do what you got to do. But it's just interesting. I guess it's just reading the signs. And again, it comes into action. Yeah. Reading the signs. What do you do about it?
Yeah.
Nothing or something.
Yeah.
Guess what? Some days I did nothing.
Yeah.
All good. Tomorrow's another day.
Yeah.
So don't beat yourself up about it.
Yeah.
Always, like, I've been lucky that it's always look at silver lining. If something goes wrong, like, you can focus on the negatives and accept it, go down that path, but bring it back out to silver lining. Maybe I needed to go through that to learn this, or to appreciate that that's where it's going to go if I do this.
Yeah. Or
whatever. Or fuck, that's life. You can't account for everything. That's why you get things in place like insurances or whatever. And, it's always, that's, I guess, one thing you can rely on, is that you can't rely on anything.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I've noticed about you in particular, I remember having a conversation a little while ago, and obviously I know you've prioritized the gym, you prioritized diet, even just the balance with the kids and, getting a cleaner.
Yeah.
Instead of having to spend weekends fucking cleaning the house, we can get
argue about it.
Right. But getting someone in who can do it better, faster and cheaper.
Correct.
And the amount that actually ends up saving you across the long term. It's just these little habits and strategies that, again, I'm encouraging our listeners to implement this for themselves, where, again, if they do start lifting heavy once a day, they start prioritizing, whole foods, quality protein, all the good things that they should be getting. They prioritize family time, not just, I need to work and that's my that's what I'm doing for the family. No, they need you.
Yeah, spot on.
And having the ability to actually spend more time with the kids, more time with the wife. I know one of the big ones was like prioritizing time with your wife.
Yeah.
This is one of the things I'm kind of neglecting at the moment.
We're still struggling with it, but it's a constant conversation.
But at least you're paying attention to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas, again, I know some people, they haven't been on a date night as husband and wife in years. And it's like, there's going to be a certain point where, and again, I get the vows, I understand the agreement you guys have, but like, if you don't put the attention on your marriage, like, shit will fall apart.
Yeah,
it's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
So the conversations that you've been having with yourself, and the things that you've been doing and the actions you've been taking in line with the conversations you've been having, you're unstoppable right now. You're a different human being than you were 6 months ago. Everyone downstairs can know this. Like, they feel it.
Oh, it's where I I guess like one of my good mates has always talked about this foundation. It's like that pyramid, you could say, and it's like if you ain't got your family in check, right, and you got like the foundations of your everyday life and so forth, how do you expect to succeed in anything else?
100%.
Like in the full heartedness of you know, it's all stems from your foundation, and sort of like that's yeah, like I guess, and that generally the bloody hardest thing is relationships, you know, and it's I guess you have old mentality about the female and male and what they're supposed to do, and we see how our, you know, sometimes generations before and how it was very clear.
Yeah.
You know, where now it's like women are more masculine than ever, men are more feminine than ever. It's the roles are just blurred. It's, you know, so I guess there's no, like, it's not defined at all, almost.
Yeah.
There is, and like people don't want to be defined anymore.
Yeah.
You know, which gives me another question behind the scenes. But anyway, that's another rabbit hole. But it's just interesting to see, like, you know, in the end, like you can sit there and focus on all of the differences and all the rest, and then like, and let that be the reason of why you don't, you know, go on a date night. Yeah. Right. And you know, and it's the whole thing, and it's like, having a day off, because my wife's going away tonight. It's freaking me out a little bit, but 2 kids for 7 days. But anyway, all good. I know I've got this. But yeah, going through and having like the Monday where it was like pretty much got my stuff sorted in the morning, and it was like, you know, we both went to the gym, dropped the kids off, knowing cool, we can take this for us, just catch up because you know, she's going away. And then, you know, us going shopping for food prep. And then in that time, you know, clients called. I'm one to just pick up the call. I'm like, we're doing food shopping. I didn't look at it as a couple thing. I looked at it as like, this is just, I guess, add it to like a chore. Yeah. Right. And and she took it wrong, which is fine. But again, it's just, again, leading into and learning from that in the end, these are the things that why she pushes away from sometimes organizing things, because I'm the one that, or something pops up with the nature of what we do here, is that you're always working, right? And it just, again, like, at least I can see, look, that I've learned from that. Yep. You know what I mean? And I've, you know, I made it up to her over the weekend, but it was like, in the end, it was like, and all well and good a whole day, but it's just some quality hours. Like, even if you can't get a whole day, like, it's cool, the kids are sleeping, we'll have a little date night there and play some games or whatever else. And, you know, and that day that we had off, we both ended up cleaning the house pretty much, you know, not spending much time together. And then we wanted to spend some time when the kids were sleeping, ended up just passing out early. It was all buggered, you know, but then it's like, yeah, cool. So if that, you failed on that, it's like, well, cool, make it up. And you know what, couple of hours of quality time, kids are sleeping great, you know, and you can sort of get that back. So it's just, I guess, just because something has trended that way, doesn't matter how many times, for how long, what's stopping you from just keep pushing to make it trend the way you need to, or balance it out. I think that's the whole part. It's like, yeah, I think it's just like constantly working on it. Yeah. And if people say that they're not, you know, I don't think they're in a relationship. They're just 2 individuals on the same, I don't know, live in the same house, I guess. I don't know.
Housemates.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like, you hear people, oh, we don't argue. I'm like, all right, you know, in a relationship, or someone's not living their truth.
Yeah, man.
But like, you know, everyone communicates differently. It doesn't have to be arguments.
Of course.
Just different forms. But yeah, it's definitely been a journey. It's like when you got young kids as well, it's like, you can plan, you can do everything right. Yeah. I think that's the plan.
Well, it's a different phase, you know, and it is temporary. And I do say this a lot to parents, you know, particularly, look, we are deep in the trenches of toddlers. You know what I mean? And it's temporary, man. Yeah, there's only a point. I say this all the time because I've got a couple of, you know, nieces and nephews they're now teenagers. And they want nothing to do with us. Correct. Nothing to do with us. You know,
I don't blame them.
I don't blame them either. I was the same.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't want anything to do with my aunties and uncles when I was running around, you know, chasing girls and all the things you do as a teenager.
Yeah, exactly.
But fun times, man. Well, I guess to finish up here, Raf, like what would you say right now, today in 2025, what is your number one tip for people, would you say? something for people to be able to take home, implement, do, and it improves their life, what would be your number one tip?
Really, in the end, I think a lot of people forget about why they're doing things. And I think that's where we always start with every new client is the why.
Yeah.
Because how do you really know what needs to be done unless you know why you're doing it? Or we've got that sheet that you've got about like all the different aspects in life and how you rate yourself on those things.
Yeah.
To sometimes narrow it down to say like, is my foundation right? Have I got, am I ready to look down this path, or is there something else that I need to work on before I'm ready for that? And I guess the reasons behind it of like, well, if I really want something, if I'm really like wanting to do what my mate's doing, or, and achieve those goals, or I'm really wanting, more in my life, or if I'm genuinely happy with just the basic, make that choice and put all the energy towards it. Right. And actually, stop talking about it. Right. But again, it's finding, I think you need enough like of the why, or like what motivates you to do it. If you're not starting there, then you sometimes, I just want to buy investment property. Well, why? What's that going to do for you? You think that's going to get you free by just buying one investment property? And like you pay it off and then what? You know what I mean? And it's like more than just property, right? When you're investing, and it's like, and in the end, like these are the, I guess, the parts behind it. It's really in, knowledge. Once you've got the why, and then learning the how to, and having the evidence behind it, will give you ideally what you need to actually make the right steps.
Yeah.
And then obviously action. So it's, I guess, how we, meet every new client. Focus on really the bigger picture.
Yeah.
But that's probably, that whole part, and like ideally put a timeline on it.
Yeah.
Hold yourself accountable, or if you can't hold yourself accountable, get others to do it.
Yeah.
I had a client that spoke to me a year ago. He's back in here. Huge difference in circumstances in life, and there was a good reason why it probably didn't work back then. And in the end, like he's just one like me that needs people to hold him accountable.
Yeah.
And that's, not to say you can't do this yourself, but in the end, a lot of people don't have the time and don't have the, I guess,
bandwidth.
Yeah. Or just to actually do it.
Yeah.
And and I think that's probably it. Just work out your why, set out the actions to do it, and start chipping away.
Yeah.
Don't get scared about the bigger picture. Just go what's the lowest lying fruit and start chipping away, getting things done. But also doesn't mean you need to go away before actioning something just to get them done, then do it. Work it out and see if there's a way that you can maybe put something in place so you can take advantage today to work towards something as well. So it's be proactive, not reactive.
Yeah.
Actually, that's probably the crux of it.
Love it, man. No, I appreciate you coming on, dude. Always valuable insights, man. But thanks again for coming on the show. Look forward to having you again next time.
Sounds good.
Sweet, brother.
See you then.
See you.
Ciao.